So, I hope for the ones who are still joining that everybody's doing fine. Today, as promised and as we decided last week, we're going to work on something very similar to what we can see in Google Maps app, and I'll just show you in a second how it looks like. Basically, I think pretty much everybody has used the app before, but you have this very complex animation that looks pretty cool, but of course when you look at it you see a lot of stuff is happening at the same time. You see the navigation bar, the search bar at the top that just keeps moving, hides and shows. You have this bottom sheet at the bottom that also shows some images at the top, and it's not just images, it's a scroll view that just works like a carousel. So there's just a lot that is going on this screen, and so we're going to reproduce this using Reanimated too. If you're not familiar with Reanimated, don't worry, I'll still try to make it easy to understand, and don't hesitate if something's not clear, just ask in the chat and I can explain better. Okay. As always, the chat is very, very open, so you can say pretty much anything you want as long as you just remain respectful. And if there's some questions in the chat and you think that you have the knowledge to answer them, please do. If not, I'll just give it a look and try to answer the questions. About the question for the repo, I think it's just easier for you to look at something, try to grasp the concepts and how it works, rather than trying to do two things at the same time. What if something doesn't work on your end, etc. So you'll find the code when the streaming is goes on YouTube on VOD. So you'll get everything, don't worry. This time it's more to see how it works, what's the method here, and I think you'll learn just better by seeing how it happens. So give me a second, I just get everything ready and we'll get started. So the first thing we're going to work on is the bottom sheet. So what you see on the left, so we're going to focus on the white part. And what we need to do is that when we move, up, when you make a pan gesture, the bottom sheet should move. By default, it's just a view, as you'll see in a second, but we need to add some gesture in this. And to do so, we'll use Reanimated, React Native gesture handler, and you'll see how this works. Okay, let's jump to coding. All right, I'll just make sure everything works. Yes, you're seeing my stream. First time on your stream, just wanted to thank you for your work. Thanks a lot for joining. I hope you're going to learn a lot of things during the stream. Welcome if you're new. So I'll just show you basically what we have, but this is not what I want. This is our application. So as you can see on the right, it got disconnected. As you can see on the right, we have a lot of elements. We have the search bar, the navigation bar, the bottom sheet at the bottom, and this black thing in the background. Actually, I'll just give it a refresh so you can see. But basically what we have on the right is everything we have on the left side. So we have this map view, and actually I just removed the overlay, that's the black part, just so you can see the map. This is using React Native Maps, I think. React Native Maps. So it's just showing something very simple. I have the width and height set here coming from use window dimension. And everything else, the geobar, maybe just you can get familiar with the different components. We have geobar, or the icons at the bottom right. Picture carousel is the part you can't really see now, but maybe if I remove the bottom sheet, you'll see the images. It's the images for that restaurant, so I'll just hide it again. And then we have this safe area view that wraps the search bar and navigation bar, just so it doesn't touch the notch. So because I said we're going to start with the bottom sheet, let's just head over to that component just so you can see how it's made. So far it's pretty simple. It's a view that is positioned absolute. And as you can see, I set it to the very bottom of my screen. So what I do here is just push it to 90% down of the screen. And to do so, I just got this hide from the window dimensions hook as well. Inside you have a safe area view, again, just to keep it away from the notch. And inside just the title and the fake content. And as you'll see, I just wanted this view to be quite big, so I need a fake content to make it bigger than it seems. Someone says, can't watch this live, we're excited to go through the recording later. No worries, I really appreciate, and yeah, hope you enjoyed this later. So that's really just we have at the moment. And as I said, we want to be able to just touch this, this bottom sheet and move it up. And for doing so, it's always pretty much the same, if you will, the same method. We're going to need three things. The first one is to create a shared value. And that shared value will contain what is the current position on the screen. And as we'll move, we'll update that shared value. So it will also update the current top position of the view. I will just start coding and you'll see exactly what I mean. So first I need to create a shared value that will contain our gesture current position. Of course, at first it will be 0 because we start at 0, and then it's going to be maybe -10, -100, etc. And this shared value will be used by all the other components. That's why I created it inside app.jsx. Because then we can, just pass it down to the other components. And as you'll see, all the other components will need this shared value. So I just create here, it comes from Reanimated, and I will pass it down to the bottom sheet. So let's call it pan y, because it's going to be a pan gesture, and just pass it y. Now, when we go back to bottom sheet, we're going to take this from the props, and we'll be able to reuse it for our gesture. For making a gesture with Reanimated and gesture handler, it's pretty simple. Again, it's always the same method we're going to use. So first you need to create a gesture handler. And the syntax is actually maybe unfamiliar if it's the first time you're seeing it. But if you wonder how this works, they have really great documentation. If you want to give it a look, just look for React Native gesture handler and you'll see a bit more. Now I just use everything, just put everything we need first, and you'll see, I'll explain to you how this works. But basically the gesture handler contains all the gesture logic, what happens when we start the gesture, what happens when the gesture is active, and what happens when it ends. So we have these different parts, on start, on active. And the last one, maybe you already know, is on end. So we have these different hooks that we will complete a bit later. What else do we need? Of course, we have set our gesture handler, but we need to attach it in some way to our view. We need to say this view needs to become animated, right? We need to interact with it. To do so, we need to import something called a pan gesture handler that, as you can see, comes from gesture handler. And Reanimated has this hook, use animated gesture handler, that makes the connection between Reanimated and gesture handler. So I just wrap the whole thing with pan gesture handler. And here you have this prop called onGesture that will take our gesture handler here. For a gesture handler to work, you also need to pass it an animated view. So the first child needs to be animated. So I'll just turn this view into an animated one. Why not use bottom 0? Yes, that's a good question. If you set bottom 0 here, the whole bottom view will be hidden, and we want to see it a little bit. So that's why I say push it 90% down instead of saying put it at bottom 0. It could also be bottom height times 0.1, just so we keep it at like 10% off the bottom. But either way, both should work, just so we can still see the bottom sheet. All right, so we have this animated view, the gesture handler, but as you can see, the gesture handler doesn't do anything. So even if we have the gesture activated at this point, it won't do anything. So we need to set the logic here. Yeah, we're a bit, we're not really in sync, but yeah. So basically what I'm going to do here is exactly what happens every time. So I will write it first and just explain it right after, don't worry. Again, remember, on start is when it starts, on active is when we're doing the gesture, and on end when it ends. Pan y value equals context start y plus event and translation y, and on end we'll do pan y value equals to with timing 0. Okay, so let me explain quickly what's happening here. Basically, what we do at first is we want to keep, like when the gesture starts, we want to store the current value of our pan y value. This means, just imagine you have a box and you say, okay, we're starting a new gesture. What is the current value of this the previous pan y value? And we put it inside that box called a context. Then start y is just called start y because that's what it is, but you can call it however you want really. Then on active, what it does is that it's going to update the pan y value based on the current y translation. But translation y only contains, if you want, the difference between the previous event. So where was your gesture a second before? Where is it now? What's the difference? And so it might be just, minus 10 or minus 3, but you want to add this to the previous, to the initial position of the gesture. So actually that's why we have this context of start y equals pan y value, is because we want to keep what is the initial position of the gesture. And then when we have it, we can add what is the current difference, if you want, the position difference between when we started the gesture and where is it now. Okay, so here we just update the pan y value, and at the end we do set it to 0, and we wrap it with timing, which will run a timed animation. That's very similar to animated timing, and then you run the animation, but that's with Reanimated. So here we have all the logic, great. And actually, even if I start this, if I save it and I use it, we won't be able to do anything. And the reason why is that the gesture will still work, so pan y value will be updated, but we need to use this pan y value somewhere. We need to apply a style on the view to say, okay, if you moved it 10 pixels up, then apply this translation to this view. And to do so in Reanimated, you can't just say, you can't just pass it a style here. You need to use an animated style. So let me create this one here, animated style. We're going to import, and what it does is to return a function that itself returns an object. So what we'll do here is I'll just add this to the list over here, and we want to apply a translation. So if you know about this, we'll use transform and add a translate y translation. And for the value of this, we'll just set it to pan y. Oh, what am I doing? Pan y dot value. So here really, again, just to rephrase and just to make sure you understand, we had this shared value that comes from the app component. Then we have the gesture handler that we associated to the view through this component here. And what it does is updating the pan y value based on where's your touch, basically, where is your finger on the screen. And after this shared value is updated, we need to create a style, an animated one, because we're using Reanimated, and we pass the pan y value as the y translation. Then once we have the style, we just pass it to the component. Okay, so I think we're good. I'll just hit save, and we need to reload the app. Again, don't hesitate to ask questions if something's not clear. Oh, I forgot to import animated. That comes from Reanimated. I think we need to reload everything. Let's hope this works. Okay. Oops. Okay, so you can't really see, but I'm just sliding up. And so as you can see, you see what happens on the right, and then you can look at the gesture handler again. We start the gesture at pan-y value, we see the context, then we move and we update the pan-y value based on the translation y, and as I release the touch, boom, it just goes back to 0. And that happens because we have this animated style here. There's a few problems. Of course, in Google Maps, you want everything to snap. So if I release at this point, it should snap to the top. And then, you know, we should be able to interact with all this. Yes, so I see something. Any recommended maps for React Native except Google Maps? What do you mean? I think there's only React Native Maps that is pretty good for that. Just a quick tip, I think it might be helpful to add a border on the element you're animating coding, just to help viewers quickly see which component you're working on. Right, this is true. Maybe I'll think about this for the next stream, thank you. But as you can see, I'm just working on bottom sheet, which is this view here. Can we add clamp also? Exactly, so this is what we're going to do right after. What is making it go back to 0, the on end? Yes, so as I release, that's the hook that is called for knowing what happens when you release the gesture. Just send it back to 0 with a timed animation. Okay? I think we can move to the next step, which is as Porf suggested, we need to clamp that thing. Because as you can see, I can also move it down, and that's something we don't want. We want it to be, you know, even if we go down, it should stay in place and only move up in one direction. So to do so, I don't know if that's the best way, but I'm going to use an interpolation. So if interpolation is not clear to you, I have a really nice video about this on my channel, but hopefully you'll understand how it works. So we have this interpolate function coming from Reanimated. And basically, again, the idea is that instead of just passing this value, we want to sort of change it, meaning that if we go too low, then it shouldn't go down. So we need a way to say when we go past a certain value, keep it at 0, let's say, and when you go up, then you can just apply pan-y value. I'm still learning how hooks work. To be honest, I had only ever used class components prior. Yes, great. Yeah. I think it's definitely like the way most people now create components, even though, yeah, there's some discussion about it. But anyways, let's just interpolate for now. So what it does is take two things. First one is the input range, and second is the output range. So the way this works is that you're going to say pan-y value can take any value between 0 and the height of the screen. So that's our input range. No, that could be, sorry. Let me, okay, I'll just type the code and maybe explain later. You'll see what I do. So basically here, I'm just saying if pan-y is -1, associate to -1, basically don't change anything, but I will add this. And that is what will make the difference. Basically what happens is extrapolate left is how should I turn this value when we're out of this range. So basically when pan-y is -2, what should I do? By default, it will just extend everything. So if it's -2, because here -1 is -1, 0 is 0, then -2 should be -2, 1 should be 1, right? So extrapolate left means what should be the behavior on the left side of this range. And then we have extrapolate right, which will be the same thing, but for the right side. So here, basically when we go down, that means we go up because we do just a negative translation. We just want to extend, meaning just keep the pan-y value on the left. So I'll use extrapolate and say extend everything. But on the right side, meaning past 0, we want to keep it at 0 even if we go past this point. So on the right side, we'll do extrapolate and we'll set it to clamp. So that means just keep it at 0, even if it's 1, 2, 3, keep it at 0. Extend -2 is -2, -3 is -3, etc. So just refresh. And now, as you can see, this works because the extrapolation on the left. And now I'm trying to go down. You can't see it, but I'm really trying and it doesn't move. That's because we clamped on the right side. Okay. So another thing we want to be doing is to snap. So that's something I said earlier. Basically, what we want is when we release the bottom sheet, if we're past a certain point, we want it to snap to the top. And if then we just scroll down again, or maybe past this point, we want to scroll back to 0. Okay, so there's two behaviors here we need to handle, and that will happen inside the on-hand callback here. Do you have to put extrapolate.extend, or is that the default? That's a good question, actually. I like to write it just so it's clear for anyone who's reading it, but you can maybe give it a try at home, and I guess that's the default. So, yeah, really it's up to you. I just put it so it's people just know. So what we have to do here is, sorry. What we have to do is, if we're past a certain point, so we'll just put true for now, okay? We want to do something, otherwise we want to do something else. So maybe I'll just keep the else condition to go back to 0. But basically we need to say if something, meaning if we're past a certain point, snap to the top. I'll just write the code and you'll understand how this works. So if pan while value, so if the current gesture value is lower than this. So what this means is height times 0.4 is 40% of our screen size. And because as I told you earlier, when we're going to scroll up, pan while value will turn negative, because that's 0. If we go down, it's going to be positive, and if we move it up, then that's a negative gesture. So we want to say when pan while value is lower than 40% of the screen, so meaning I think it should be around here, snap to the top. So far we have this with timing 0. That's not what we want, but that's exactly what the if condition means. When we're past this point, what should you do? Otherwise, just snap to the bottom. Just trying to read the comments. I see there's a conversation about hooks. Hello from Senegal. Hello, Mohamed. If you put the pan while value where it says Maison Paul Bocuse, it will help us visualize the pan while value. That is true. That is true. But again, actually, I don't even know if that's possible. Can we show? I don't know. But just what you have to remember is here in that direction, it will be negative. And if I just move it lower, which I can't anymore because of the extrapolation, it should be positive. Just, remember that. So what we have to do at this point is snap to the top. And so instead of using a time animation to 0, we'll just use height times 0.6. And that will be negative again because we want it to be to the top. And so you might wonder why it's 0.6. As you'll see later, if you remember, there's a carousel at the top, and the carousel, I've decided it should be 40% of the screen. So it should maybe be around here. So I'm just saying, put it maybe up there, and the space we have left should be filled with the carousel later. Okay. So I just save this. I think I probably need to reload, because anytime you change something here, you pretty much need to reload everything. So I'll just show you. And as you can see now it stays in place. And if I go lower and release, it goes back to the bottom. If I go upper and release, it then goes back to this snap point. So see, the logic is quite simple, but the result really looks good, right? Okay, I think we're done with this part. We're done with the bottom sheet. I'll just put it back here so you can see. All right. Just one thing we're missing here, as this will be running on the UI thread. So this is the thread that is used by Reanimated. anything that comes from outside this thread. So here height is on the JavaScript thread. We need to pass it as a dependency. So whenever height is changed, then this whole thing will be recreated because we use it here. And again, height is an outside variable. All this here runs on the separate thread, so it needs to be aware of outside variables when they change to recreate all this. All right, I just hit save, and I think we can just move on to the next part. So now we're going to look at the search or navigation bar. So if you remember what we just had on our screen, we had both at the same time. We have the search bar and the navigation bar at the same time. The way Google Maps works, if I just show you the final result again, is that when we move to a certain point, the search bar becomes hidden, and then we see the navigation bar. And then it's just vice versa. When we pass a certain point, you should just do the opposite. Hey Simon, oh, I'm glad you could make it. But when would the height ever change? If you just, I wonder actually, would it change if you rotate your device? Either way, even if it doesn't change, let's say, that's, I think, a good practice, because imagine you have your app running on the web. You could just resize your window and that will change the height. Maybe in an app it might not. I really wonder if you change the orientation, if height remains the same, if it just, swaps width and height, I don't know. But you're right, it could be just secondary if you don't need the web. Maybe for mobile, I'm not sure. Panwire will not change if we try to put it on screen as it is on the separate thing. Yes, exactly. Okay, so we need to do this second part, as I just said, which is the search and navigation bar. So we'll just jump back to the code. I still need to get familiar with all the shortcuts. Okay, so if we go back to our application, what we need to work with is the search bar and navigation bar. And as what we just did with the bottom sheet, we need to use this shared value to see where we are in the gesture. So if we're past a certain point, then this should react to it, and vice versa for the navigation bar. So we'll do exactly the same thing and pass this y shared value to both components. Let's start with the search bar. So just open this one. As you can see, it's just a very simple component. I don't even have a text input inside, just so it looks similar to Google Maps. But basically what you have is, it's just a normal view. So what we need to do is to take the pan Y here. Let me just take my notes, because yes, I'm doing this from notes. Okay, so for the search bar, what we'll do, as I said, we're going to have an animated style, because pan-y is a shared value. So if you want to make some view react to a shared value for a style property, you need to use first an animated view and second an animated style. So first, let's turn this view into an animated one. We'll import this from Reanimated. And the second part is to have an animated style. So it's very similar to what we did before, but just here it's going to be fairly simple, because we just need to change the styling based on the current scroll position. We don't need to deal with the gesture anymore. So what we'll do here is to return translation, and we want to hide the search bar when it's past a certain point, and we want to show it otherwise. So we need to have this translate y that will move it up or down. Basically, when it's shown, it should be at 0. When it's hidden, it should be maybe minus 150, just so we make sure it's out of the screen. So I'll just do this here so you can see where I'm going with this, and I will add the style over here. So it might take some time to refresh, but it might be hidden when it gets refreshed. Oh, it takes some time. Uh-oh. Give me a second. For some reason, it just stopped sharing my screen. Okay, I'll just put this on standby. I think we're doomed, you know. Every time. I'm just sorry about this. I'll just restart everything. Yes. Let's view. I really feel like we're doomed, you know. Every time it stops working. Okay, I got it back. Perfect. So let's jump back to the code. Sorry about that. You should see everything clearly again. So now as you can see, because I said minus 150 here, it's hidden. And if it's at 0, it's back. Okay, so we really need just to animate this. And to do so, you'll see it's very simple. We should have something here called hidden. Let's set it to true by default, and we'll see what's the logic there. And what we should do here is, if it's hidden, set it to minus 150, otherwise set it to 0. We were so close to greatness. Yes, I know, right? It's just always, but see, it's back there. So we're meant to finish this project. So this is actually fine, but we want to animate it. The way to do this in Reanimated is to do this. I'll just explain it in a second. If I say with timing something, if let's say this is minus 150, and then for some reason this becomes false, then it will animate the property using a timed animation. Okay, so if I just don't set this with timing thing, then it will just move the view from minus 150 to 0. And because we want to animate it, we just need to wrap the whole thing with timing. You can also use with spring if you want a spring animation, etc. So this is fine. Now all we're missing is this part. Again, all we need to do at this point is to see, are we past a certain point in the gesture? Because if so, then you need to hide or show the search bar. And to do so, we'll need to do something very similar to what we had here, you know, with the height and looking at something like that. We just need to look at where are we on the screen, and if we're past a certain point, hide the view, otherwise show it, okay? So hidden here is just pan y value is inferior to height divided by 3, and that's negative. Again, you know why. So height divided by 3, I'm just saying if you're past the third of the screen, then it's, actually I wonder, it should be hidden, yes, and if you're over it, it should be shown. Okay. Let's refresh. Oh, I don't have the height. It's definitely not going to work. We should get this from the use window dimension. And now refresh. Oh, yes. Okay, so first it's this, then it's that. Use window dimension. Okay, let's see if this works. See? So it clearly animates past a certain point. And what I really like is that it's just so simple, right? Just do this and then it animates. So I see a question. Can we do it like this with timing minus 150 or 0? Actually, that's a good question. Let's see. I don't know myself. So I guess it's maybe it's possible, but we would get a different feeling. That's my guess. It would probably just animate if it's in one way. Yes, exactly. So this works, but then it doesn't animate back when we show it again. Okay, so I just go back to what we had, and here we are. Okay, So see, that's just what we had to do. And actually, for the navigation bar, we need to do exactly the same, but the opposite. Meaning, if we're past a certain point, we need to, hide it or show it. So it's not going to be using the translate Y property. It's going to be the opacity. We want to have opacity set to 0 if we want to hide it, or to 1 if we want to show it. All right. Please recommend other resources to learn Reanimated aside this channel. Look, I think I don't want to... Okay, I don't know how to say this, but there's a lot of really high quality tutorials on my channel, and there's really a lot more coming up. I can't say much more about this, but trust me, there's really a lot that is coming. Documentation, yeah, we agree. It's just so difficult. I can't tell you everything, but I promise you should stay subscribed to this channel because there's really a lot more that is coming in, and I think you'll see. I can't say more. But yeah, there's other channels. It really depends how much time you have. If you have 40, 50 minutes to watch something, up to you. But there's William. I think that's maybe the only guy who's doing this. Anyways. So we have all the logic for the search bar, and we'll do something very similar for the navigation bar. Can we do it with interpolate? Just let me know, Mubarak, what do you really mean? Why would you need interpolate? Oh, I can see where we're connecting to cut space. Just refresh. I think internet is kind of dying. Have so many things connected. I hope this is not going to leave us. Gosh. Okay, I'll just move back to the chat, waiting for this to work. Stream down. No. Oh, did it happen? Okay, I think it was because of my internet connection. And yes, Mubarak, this was also possible. Oh. Okay, can you guys hear me? I think it should be back. Whoa, I'm telling you, I think it's how do you say? I'm cursed, right? So it should be a bit slow. Let me just start everything again. Okay. So we'll get there, don't worry. I need to let this. I just show the live so people can see the comments at the same time. And this. Okay, I think we're back for everything. Let me jump back code. Hopefully this works this time. So we're back with our navigation bar, and as I said, we need to do exactly the same thing we did with the search bar. So I'm just going to paste this and do something quite similar. So we'll take this use window dimension from here. I remove the view because we need animated. So let's import it from Reanimated. And we need also use animated style. And again, it's really the same logic. We need to turn this view into an animated one Here we do exactly the same. And we have this animated style that we can pass here. So the only difference at this point is we're not going to use transform, but we're going to use opacity. So, oh, I think we've lost a few people on the way, but you're among the lucky ones. You're the one who stick to the stream. Guys, have you encountered this problem already? Attempted to define property on an object that is not extensible. That's quite an odd bug. You should try online and see if something comes up. Maybe even ask them directly. Yes, thanks guys for helping out each other. So let's just change this here. We'll need with timing, just like before. And all we need to do is with timing, if it's hidden, then opacity 0, and if not, then opacity 1. The only difference here is instead of just, this was the condition for the search bar, we need to reverse the condition and just do this. And now if I hit save and just refresh that, can you just tell me if you see my screen properly? Just want to make sure you do. Oh yeah, we forgot pan Y. This time it should work. I'll just need to reload everything. Yeah, cool. Cool. Yeah, I really don't know what happened. It just, oh, we still needed view. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, hit save. Then we need to reload once again. Again, for anyone who's joined a bit later, remember to like the video. It really helps. You know, when you're a small channel, it really helps to grow. So if I do this, as you can see, so we have two animations, the one for the navigation bar and one for the search bar. yeah, that's true. So you can see it's very nice. And what I really love about Reanimated is that when you look at the code and you kind of understand the logic behind it, it's always the same steps and the result looks really, really cool. So maybe on the screen it's a bit laggy, I don't know for you, but on my end it's really, really smooth. I have an idea. I can create a group chat for guys to join this to ask everything about React Native. This is something that's been suggested before. We'll see really how we go about that. I think it's good, you know, to really get started on YouTube and have everybody gathering for live streams or videos. And after that, maybe we can think of expanding everything. At the moment, I think we have something really cool. Okay, so we're done with this part. So we can now move to something else, which is the overlay. So the overlay is this black part we see behind the screen, and it should just go, I mean, the screen should become dark as you move the bottom sheet up and vice versa. Okay, so if we just go back to the code, you'll see I have this overlay component. So it's here, we got it hidden for now. So I'll just uncomment it. And as you can see, it's just showing a black view. If we look at the code, it's just what it does. It's an absolute view, and the container is just set to have a black background. Oh, guys, I got a lot of comment. I like that this is just for React Native animation rather than React Native basics. Yeah, I don't think you can really see this level on different channels, or maybe it's too complex or it's so simple. But what I really like about this channel is that you can really see things that you use every day, and it's not something really weird. It's really something you could use for your own application. What's really important at this point really is you understand the logic. If you understand that, you can reuse it for pretty much anything you need. So for the overlay, as I told you, we just need to play with this view opacity. So again, it's always the same step. You need to turn the view into an animated one. So we'll need to import animated from Reanimated. Okay, and we need an animated style. So use animated style from Reanimated. That is a function that returns an object, and this object should be the style object for that we want to animate. Okay, as I told you, we're going to play with the opacity, so we should have something here. For now, will be 0, and I'll just grab everything here. So if we refresh, of course, we don't see the view anymore because I set the opacity to 0. Now, obviously, we need to do something with pan y, and I don't think I pass it here, so we'll do just the same thing, you know, pan y, get it from the properties. Haven't used, I haven't used React Native yet, but I definitely have to check it out now. It's so cool, isn't it? Isn't it? Does anyone know how to do this in Android screen sharing? Actually, the thing I'm using is called Let's View, and I'm pretty sure it works on Android. You should maybe just Google it and see if that works. Okay. So, let me see how we can do that. Basically, again, the idea is that by default, the opacity should be at 0. And as we move up, it should become 1. Okay, so that might remember you what interpolation does. And this is actually exactly what we're going to do here. So I'll call interpolate, pass it the pan y value, which is a shared value, right? And we need the input range, the output range, and maybe extrapolation. So the input range is here at 0, and it might go up to the height of the screen. So that means pan y value pan y will go from 0 up to the height screen. So we're going to put this here, and as I told you, it's not going to be positive, it's going to be negative. So we need to put a negative sign here because the movement, the gesture goes up, which is a negative movement. And we need to get the height, as always, from use window dimension. Okay, you can also remove this view here. And so this is our input range, and the output range is when we're at 0, what should be the opacity? When we're at 0, it should be 0, and when we're at the top of the screen, it should be 1 because it should show the overlay all the time, right? So let's just put 1 here. And to be extra cautious, if for some reason I can scroll past the screen, which I don't think it's possible, but just to make sure, we want to clamp all of this. So we'll use extrapolate clamp. And as you can see, this is a bit different from what we did earlier with extrapolate left, extrapolate right. This shortcut just says clamp on both sides. Okay, so I'll just hit save. And it doesn't work because we don't have interpolate. I really have a problem with imports. Okay, so let's see. And as you can see, it just goes dark, right? See how simple it is. So just see the code on the left and what it does on the right. This is very powerful. Actually, I think we're done with the overlay, so that's really great. We don't have many more steps after that, so it might be the end of the stream very soon. Let me see the comments a little bit. Modi has very nice APIs similar to Frame and Motion. That was actually the intent of Fernando. While developing, it's very tiring switching back and forth between phone and laptop screen. Yes, exactly. Get your phone and component. Oh, Thibaut. I didn't know you were there, Thibaut. Well, there's a lot of experts in here. Let me just continue with all of this. We're going to move to the last part. Okay, let me just show you what we're going to work on. What's left? The carousel. So that's, all the pictures of the restaurants we want to show. You'll see just a scroll view, a horizontal scroll view, and the icons. The icons are the one at the bottom right. I'll just show them to you again. It's the things you see at the bottom right, you know, the two icons at the bottom, right behind the bottom sheet. So in the Google Maps application, these two icons are actually moving up for some time, and past a certain point, they stop going up. Oh, I opened something, I should. Uh-oh. Guys, I swear it's really a curse. I think I need the standby screen once again. Let me just handle this. Uh-oh. Okay, I think I need to refresh. Give me a second and I'll just show the chat for anyone who wants to see what's going on. I think it's just my screen which froze. Okay, I'm back. Okay, let's jump back to the code and yeah, I think we did this standby quite a few times already. And the fun part is that I was really thinking this time, no problem, I prepared everything, let's see, it still happens, but that's internet, that's out of my control. So as I told you, we're going to play with what I call the geobar, the two icons, and then the pictures carousel. So let's start with the simplest part, which is the geobar. I'll take my notes and we can move on with the logic. Okay. So, surprisingly enough, we're going to do something very, very similar to what we just did for the other components. As you can see, we have the safe area view, so that's not something we want to touch. This would be more like it. So that contains both icons, and as I said earlier, we want to use the pan-y current value to say this should go up a little bit, and past a certain point, it shouldn't anymore. So first, we're going to need this pan-y value that I will pass from here, pan-y equals y, and we can jump back to the component. And here, I'm going to tell you a secret. We're going to do exactly the same thing. So, two things, as always, an animated style. So use animated style. This should return an object, okay? We can pass this to the view here. That's the one we want to animate. And because it's an animated view, we need to say it's an animated view. Okay. I'll need to import animated from here. Oh, let's view works great. Yeah, actually last time my whole QuickTime player broke for some reason and I can't even see my screen anymore. So I had to find a workaround. Okay, so we have the animated view, the animated style. Now we need to say what should happen. And as I told you, we're going to use a translation Y, a transformation, to move the icons up and then make them stop. So we need to play with this translate Y property. And to do so, once again, we're going to use our friend interpolate. That takes the pan-y value. And again, we have an input range, an output range. Yeah, and I think we'll need clamping, but let's see what it should do. I'll just write the code and explain it afterwards. I think it's maybe more, you'll understand it better. So what I'm doing here is when we're at 0, that's the default position. When we are at minus 100, it might be around here, okay? So what we're saying is, if you're at minus 100, you should be at minus 100. So you might think, why do we need interpolation? What we're missing is just to extrapolate. Okay, extrapolate. And the reason for that is that when we're below 0, it should stay in place. When we're at 50, it should be at 50. Okay, the translation Y should be set at minus 50. But when we are at maybe minus 120, okay, they should not move anymore. So they shouldn't be set to pan-y value. We should just say, okay, don't move anymore. And that's why we clamp. So because we clamp, that means that if we're at minus 120, it will still remain at 1 minus 100. Same on the other side. If it's 10 here, it will still remain 0 because that's what clamp does. Otherwise, it's going to extend everything. So minus 200 here would be minus 200, etc. So we're just clamping the value past a certain point. Pan-Y, oh, I forgot to import it. Let's do it here. I'm not sure I can see my screen. Let's see. Okay, it works. Sometimes there's a little delay with Let's View. Actually works in Windows as well. Might be worth trying. Yes, I'm not a Windows user anymore, so I can't really tell you about that. So let's see how this works. See, when it's at 0, it stays at 0. When we're at minus 50, it's at minus 50, up to minus 100, and then it stops because of the clamping. Wow, we're really getting somewhere, aren't we? Actually, we're just one step away from finishing this project, and you'll see it will make everything looks much better. So we're missing some pictures at the top, and what I'll do is just to hide the bottom sheet for a second, just so you can see what we're hiding for all this time. So you can see all the pictures there. If you look at the component, I just have a list of images put inside an horizontal scroll view. Let me take a sip of water. So it just, showing this horizontally, and everything's quite normal. Have this top here, which is set exactly like the bottom sheet, if you remember, or if you've joined the stream a bit later. That's what we had here as well. So that's why both of them are stacked on top of each other, and we can't see this component when the bottom sheet is on top of it. Inside, we map over all these images, and we just show an image with a height of 40%. If you were there at the beginning of the stream, you know why we did, where is it? Here we snap back to 60% because I told you we want to snap up to 40% up, so we'd still have some space to see the images. So now you'll see how it works. And then the width is just set to 70% of the screen, just so it's not 50-50, we can see a clear picture. But now we can see the picture, so let's add some animation. And for that, as always, we'll need to pass this shared value over here. Salut Thibaut. I didn't see your message. I'm kind of excited because we're just so close from the final result. And we did all of this in less than an hour. That's crazy. So the last part we need here is to add some styling to the scroll view. So let me just take my notes. And maybe I even show you the final result again, so you can really see what we're heading towards. So as you can see, it should move pretty much at the same time as the bottom sheet, but even faster actually, right? It doesn't really move at the same speed, meaning the pictures should go up much faster than the bottom sheet. And you'll see this is actually something we can find in the code. Okay. So again, remember the step. Because we want to animate the scroll view position, we need to turn this into an animated scroll view. So let's just turn this into animated. And second step, as you might remember, is to use an animated style. So reanimated, use animated style, and we're going to need animated here because we used it there. As always, same pattern. We return a style object, and that will pass it to the styling there. I think maybe it's important to look a little bit at bottom sheet, the animated style we had for this one, because it's pretty much going to be the same thing here. Pretty much, you'll see there's a little difference. But as you can see, we just need to interpolate the pan-y value and then do something. But basically, it's just a translate y transformation. So we'll do something very similar to that. Let's start transform, and translate y. So that is the part you probably already know. No need of looking at the phone now. Oh, I think you guys are talking about something else. Let's import interpolate. And we'll need this pan y value. So let's take it from the properties, pass it here. Again, this is something I forgot to mention, but maybe you got it by now. To read the current value of a shared value, you need to say the shared value dot value. That's a bit different from if you're used to animated. So again, interpolation, so that means input range, output range, and maybe an extrapolation afterwards. So what will be the input range? Well, basically, we want to show the pictures once we reach this point. So that's 40% away from the top. So meaning once we reach this point, the carousel should be entirely visible and the default point will be 0. Okay, so that's our input range, I think. Oh, I forgot to take my notes. Okay. Yeah, so we'll start at 0 and we need to go up to 60% because as I told you, the pictures, the carousel will be 40% of the screen. So the input range will be height times 0.6. And again, it's negative because these will be negative values because we go up, we don't go down. Okay, so this means when it's at 0, what should be the translation? Well, it should be 0, right? But once we reach 60%, so that's the final stop for our bottom view, meaning this is 60% of the screen, we should set the pictures to be taking the full space. So this means that once we reach this stop, this snap point, everything should be visible. So we need to send the carousel at the very top of the screen. So basically we just need to say this. If we read this again together, at 0, it's at 0. When I'm reaching 60% of the screen, the whole scroll view should be set at the top of the screen, at the very top, over there. Okay, so that's why I use interpolation to send it up to the top once we reach 60%. Just to make sure things don't go a little weird, we'll use clamp here to make sure, it doesn't go off boundaries. And I think we're good. Okay, let me scroll down. See? So once we reach 60%, so we can still move up, okay, that's really no problem. But then the carousel stops moving up because we clamped everything, okay? And as you can see, as we move up, the carousel goes up a bit faster, right? Because we say, once we reach 60%, then touch the top of the screen. Pretty cool, right? So now I can just see the images or just do this. Everything works. So we have really, if you just count how many things we've done in just an hour, that's the search bar that goes away, the navigation bar that, fades in, fades out very nicely. We have a bottom view with gestures. We have this carousel at the top. We have the overlay. We have the geo bar, the 2 icons at the bottom left. That's really a lot of stuff. And as you can see, the code for this and the logic was pretty similar every time. And what I hope you can remember from that is that even in the apps you're using every day that look a bit fancy, you can do this in React Native with very small logic. And I really hope that if you're still unfamiliar with Reanimated, that this will help you in the right direction. If there's any question, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I think we can move to the next part, which is probably the thing you're waiting every time. What should we be doing next week? And this time we have something you already know. That's Reddit. That should be no surprise. But we have another proposition. So what I want you to do now in the comments is to tell you, do you want next Friday to see SoundCloud? I think the animation is quite cool, actually, or Reddit. And last week people chose Google Maps over Reddit. So up to you. You just decide which one you want to see next time. SoundCloud. I see the first SoundCloud. Okay, I don't want to give my opinion because I really like SoundCloud very much. And you know, as I chose SoundCloud as an option this week, I was even thinking, wow, this looks so cool. I really wonder how it can be done with React Native. Um, Obviously, we'll probably make this with Reanimated again. So if today was a good introduction for you for Reanimated, just so that next week we'll use the exact same tools. Okay, I think everyone is going for SoundCloud, so let's pick SoundCloud. Look, guys, I really enjoyed, for anyone who spent an hour, or even if you joined and came along at some point, thanks a lot. You know, this is still pretty new, these lessons, and I really enjoyed the fact that we can talk, and I don't know, it's really cool, isn't it? And it's just 1 hour. So thanks again for joining. I'll leave you with the goodbye screen. And look, what can I say? Thanks for watching, and see you next Friday.